Grab your Bibles, go to John. We're going to be in the Gospel of John until Easter. We're starting a new sermon series called Encounter. We're just looking at moments in the Gospel of John where people have a life-altering encounter with Jesus. And so John chapter 1, we're going to be in verse 46. The question I want to pose to you is, where do you look to answer the big questions of life? Where do you look? We're all doing it. Some of you could articulate that. Well, I look to the Bible. There's other people that would say, well, I can't articulate it, but I'm telling you, you're living your answer. You understand that? You're living your answer to the question, where do you look for the big questions, to answer the big questions of life? As I think about the options, let me give you three. The first one is, I think many of us just look to entertainment. The more entertained we can be, the happier we are, the less we have to deal with the stuff of our lives. And so I don't know if you saw this week, but there was a 13-year-old kid, I think in Alabama, that beat Tetris this week. Did you see that? Okay, now, don't get me wrong. I love myself a good game of Tetris. Honestly, I do. I actually play Tetris. Not often. I love myself a good game of Tetris. But this 13-year-old kid plays Tetris for 20 hours a week. Guys, 20 hours a week. That's like 3 hours a day just playing Tetris. I mean, come on. So it may not be Tetris, but it may be your favorite sports team. It may be your next vacation. It may be something, some entertainment, some recreation that maybe answers some of the big questions of life. What is the purpose of life? It's just to feel good. I just want to feel good. I want that experience. Second place is we look to thinkers, because we're downstream from thinkers at universities and different places. So we look to these types of thinkers. I just read an article, I forget where it was, The Atlantic, I think. Anyway, it was a new book was just released called Determined, Science of Life Without Free Will. It was written by a guy named Dr. Robert Sapolsky. He's a primatologist and neuroscientist at Stanford. And he takes a very, very controversial view of the world. And all he says is that you are the product of your biology. You are only the product of what came before you. So all of your moral behavior, all of your decisions, all of these things are actually pre-wired, and you do not have free will. There's no agency. And so the implication is that no one should be held responsible for your positive actions or your negative one. Okay? This is honestly a view held by a guy at Stanford called Dr. Robert Sapolsky. We are influenced by these thinkers as we are downstream from them, and they bring us these thoughts. So you may not believe in that, but this is how we are formed and how we answer the big questions of life. Another place I think most of us, honestly, probably are most formed, or the place that we go, is social media. Social media. As we're scrolling these memes on social media, they are answering the questions that you have. Again, you may not be coming to Instagram saying, what is the purpose of life? You're not actually doing that. But as you are interacting with it, it's actually giving you the answers. And so I actually did that on my Instagram this week. I said, what is the purpose of life, okay? And here's one answer, okay? This is what, like a meme that came up on Instagram, and here's what it says. Stop trying to be who they want you to be. Be who you are supposed to be. Right? Well, that's answering a huge question of the telos and destiny of my life. What are you supposed to do? Stop being who they want you to be. I don't know who they is, but whoever they is, whether it's religion or your parents or whatever, don't be that. Be who you were supposed to be. My question is, who are you supposed to be? No, that's the question. Where are you going to answer that question of who am I supposed to be? And what if who I'm supposed to be changes next year? Right? Our identity is always in flux. And so, again, you may not hold to this, but this is the world in which we live in. The question is, where do you look to answer the big questions of life? We're going to see an encounter with Jesus this morning, John chapter 1, with somebody who has an enormous question of life. His name is Nathaniel. So as I said, we're going to look at these moments in John's gospel of really life-altering encounters. And as a culture, we love encounters. We see it in the paranormal all the time on the way that you're entertained. These paranormal encounters, these TV shows, documentaries. People go to Hollywood and they pay hundreds of dollars to have a tour of Hollywood. Why? So that you may have an encounter with one of these celebrities. This is our culture. And so here what we see is not Hollywood or the paranormal, but with Jesus Christ. And we're going to see someone who's extremely skeptical of Jesus and the encounter that he has. So if you're willing and able, would you stand with me as we read John chapter 1, verse 46? My apologies, 43 to 51. This is the word of the Lord for us. It says, the next day, Jesus decided to leave for Galilee. Finding Philip, he said to him, "Follow me." Philip, like Andrew and Peter, was from the town of Bethsaida. Philip found Nathanael and told him, "We have found the one Moses wrote about in the law and about whom the prophets also wrote, Jesus of Nazareth, the son of Joseph." "Nazareth? Can anything good come from there?" Nathanael asked. "Come and see," said Philip. When Jesus saw Nathanael approaching, he said to him, "Here truly is an Israelite in whom there is no deceit." "How do you know me?" Nathanael asked. Jesus answered, "I saw you while you were still under the fig tree before Philip called you." Then Nathanael declared, "Rabbi, you are the Son of God. You are the King of Israel." Jesus said, "You believe because I told you I saw you under the fig tree. You will see greater things than that." He then added, "Very truly I tell you, you will see heaven open and the angels of God ascending and descending on the Son of Man." Lord, for those in this room who follow you and for those who are unsure, we pray that you would speak through this ancient text to this modern people by your Spirit. In your name we pray. Amen. Amen. You can have a seat. Here's what we're going to see. We're going to see 5 things: the question, the invitation, the response, the conclusion, the correction. You are a detective watching this encounter happen, and you're writing notes. And as you write the notes, these are the big headings: the question, the invitation, the response, the conclusion, and the correction. And don't worry, I will have you out of here as soon as I can. The question, verse 46a, here's where it starts. So John's opening of the gospel is this beautiful John chapter 1 is this beautiful moment of John talking about the Logos. And this is a really steeped in Greek philosophy at the time. That Jesus, what John's point is that Jesus is the organizing principle of the world. Okay, that's his opening. That Jesus, who has always been, has come in the flesh. And now he is the organizing principle of the world. John moves from that to Jesus now assembling his team, his disciples. And so this is one of those moments as Jesus is assembling his disciples, and one of them is Nathanael. So it says the next day, Jesus decided to leave for Galilee. Finding Philip, he said to him, "Follow me." Philip, like Andrew and Peter, was from the town of Bethsaida. Philip found Nathanael and told him. I just want to point out, for Philip, all we have recorded, and I think it's purposeful, all that we have recorded from Philip is Jesus saying, "Follow me," and Philip's like, "Sure, let's do it," right? Nathanael, we're going to see, has a little bit more, has more questions, okay? Philip's like, "Yeah, bro, I'm in," okay? Now, Philip found Nathanael. So here's these kind of 2 prominent people in this encounter and told him, "We have found the one Moses wrote about in the law and about whom the prophets also wrote, Jesus of Nazareth, the son of Joseph." I think this tells us a little bit about Nathanael. This is Philip talking to Nathanael saying, "We have found the one Moses wrote about in the law and whom the prophets also wrote, Jesus of Nazareth." So he's introducing Nathanael to Jesus, and he does so in a certain way. And what he's saying to Nathanael is this: Jesus has fulfilled all of Israel's story. All of Israel's story fulfilled in the person of Jesus. The long-awaited Messiah is here. Philip is encountering Nathanael through the intellect. All right? As you are an Israelite scouring the Old Testament, Philip comes and says, "Bro, all of your work is pointing to Jesus. All of your curiosity is pointing to Jesus Christ." So here's what I believe. I think we can say for Nathanael, his hesitation towards Jesus is in his intellect. Now, it's not through atheism or anything like that. It's through, I want to understand who the Jewish Messiah is. Philip says, "Bro, we found him." Okay? So this is introducing us to a little bit of who Nathanael is. Now, here's Nathanael's response to Philip's introduction of who Jesus is. He says, "Nazareth, can anything good come from there?" Can anything good come from there? And here is where we have the question. Nazareth, this is the point of contention for Nathanael. all right? Because he says he's from Nazareth, and he's like, oh, no, Nazareth, no, nothing good can come from there. See, Nazareth was Nowheresville. The capital of Nowheresville was Nazareth, all right? This was the wrong side of the tracks. This was backwater and primitive. Josephus, who's a first century historian, quite authoritative on lots of different matters. Josephus scours and travels all the way through first century Israel. He mentions tons of different places, never mentions Nazareth. Why? Because it's backwards, primitive, in the sticks, Nazareth. What good can come from there? We believe, just from what we understand, in John chapter 21, the detail is given to us that Nathanael, who's asking this question, is from Cana, just a few miles away from Nazareth. So we believe that these cities are just regional foes. Do we know anything like that? Kelowna. Right? We get it. We totally get it. We understand. Those people from that place, which will be unmentioned, right? This is Cana and this is Nazareth, okay? This is what's going on. See, but what is actually happening, think about this, is that what Nathanael's doing is he's saying there are right people and there are wrong people. There are suitable people, there are unsuitable people. There are people who get it and there are people who don't get it. Those people are like that. We are like this. And this is better than that. That's what he's saying. He is making a moral judgment on a group of people because of where they are from. See, by being this type of people, you are smart, included, and suitable. And you are able to roll your eyes or spit on the ground for those people. And this is what humans do. Whether you're from Kamloops or Kelowna, Nazareth or Cana, or you fill in the blank, this is what we do. And we roll our eyes at the other people. See, Nathanael could not believe that someone from Nazareth could have the answers to the big questions of life. There's no way that a person from that place will give me what I'm looking for. There's no way. So there's a sociologist. His name is Peter Berger. Peter Berger. And he introduces a concept called plausibility structures. Plausibility. So plausibility just means to be reasonable, okay? And a plausibility structure, we all have it, you have it, our culture has it, is a social process by which we are primed to believe and receive ideas as authoritative. So everybody here, you have a plausibility structure in your Western brain, depending on your family of origin, education, your job, training. We all have plausibility structures that we move ideas into and say correct, or we move ideas out of and say incorrect. Does that make sense? All of us have this plausibility structure. Now, there have been tectonic shifts in our culture over the last 2 or 3, probably more decades for a lot of different reasons. For many people in your life here, you experience Christianity with a positive plausibility structure in our world, right? That most people would say 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80 years ago that Christianity is the correct understanding of the world. Okay? Both in what it says, how it operates, and this was the dominant view of the culture. Because of these tectonic shifts, we won't get into why we have come here, but Christianity has moved from the dominant plausibility structure, yes, I agree with this, to the minority. Okay? And so you probably feel that the way that you view the world, the way that you understand yourself, your destiny, the decisions that you make are no longer in the majority, but actually the minority. A perfect example is this. So yesterday morning, it was like our last day of holidays, and so we woke up and we had PVR'd The Sound of Music. Remember that movie? 1965. 1965, that movie was made, but it is representing kind of World War II era, okay? If you watch that movie as a person in 2024, filmed in 1965, representing 1943, the plausibility structures in that movie are just mind-numbing. It seems like you're looking at a different world. I mean, think about this moment, right? I am 16, going on 17, da 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 da. What is that? Like, as a modern person, you're looking at this 16-year-old woman who's looking at this 17-year-old boy saying, I need your help. I'm dumb. I can't figure out the world. No, I am not commenting on at all the gender stuff. All I am saying is, as a modern person that is outside my plausibility structures. Does that make sense? Everybody has that. For Nathaniel, he's saying, Jesus is outside my plausibility structure. It doesn't seem reasonable that somebody from Nazareth could give me the answer to my life. And so the questions that our culture is asking of Jesus is simply still this: can anything good come from Jesus? Is he the person I need to ask for the big questions that I have of my life? And the answer dominantly now is probably not. For whatever reason. Many different reasons. Whatever reason. My friends, my point is just this. We are still in a time where the culture that you live in is asking the question, can anything good come from Nazareth? Can anything good come from Christianity? The answer, I think, is absolutely yes, to be clear. But the question still is being asked. There's people, relationship experts, who look at the breakdown of marriages. One of the things they say is, you know that a marriage is in a bad place is when eye rolling has occurred. Because eye rolling exemplifies contempt. You no longer respect this person, and it's just easier to eye roll and move away from them. They say it's toxic in relationship, this eye rolling. Here's my point. If you're in this room and you're not sure, be careful of your eye roll. It's a toxic thing in your relationships, and also as you look to answer the big questions of life. Okay, that's the question. God? Whoa. Did you put like reverb on my voice so I could sing You Are 16 going on 17 again? I'll sing it a cappella. Is that good? We're back? Okay, what happened? Amazing. There's always a first. Does it sound normal to you now? Yeah, okay. I am 16 going on 17. Okay, so where are we? Where are we here? Okay, we're at the invitation. All right, we won't spend a lot of time on this. Here's Philip's response to really a sneering question. Come and see. Doesn't get defensive. Doesn't say, oh, let's do a Bible study. You can get out of the Bible. Here's how wrong you are, Nathaniel. Blah, 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 blah. Isaiah 53 goes through the Old Testament. He doesn't do any of that. Doesn't get mad. Doesn't give him bad answers. Just says, hey, why don't you come and see? Why don't you come and see? And this is what leads to the encounter. Come and see. So the idea that people can have an encounter with Jesus is outside the plausibility structure of a lot of Western people for a lot of different reasons. But here's the reality, is that it's still happening. Lots. You may not hear about it in the media, but it is happening. It happened to somebody. Her name is Ayaan Hirsi Ali. She wrote a piece in Unheard. It's an online kind of journal magazine called Why I Am Now a Christian. Okay, Why I Am Now a Christian. Ali grew up in Africa as a Muslim. All right, and so she adopted this faith, the faith of her parents, and as she interacted with Islam and she moved to the West, there was just this sense of like, this is not the answer to the big questions that I have of life. This is not the way forward. And so what she did, as most people do statistically in the West, is she embraces a secularism and an atheism. She just says, I don't want any of it. Religion is an ill. It's not good for the world. I'm going to abandon my the religion of my infancy and upbringing, and I'm going to embrace secularism. So Ali is what you call a libertarian, and so she agrees with and wants to promote the values of the West, which is like free speech and democracy and equality and all of these sorts of things. And so as a thinker, she's looking at what worldview best gives me those virtues, those things that I want about democracy and free speech and a good functioning society. And she says, it's not in Islam because I abandoned that. She's like, wait, it's not in atheism anymore. Because actually, it doesn't give me what I want. It doesn't answer my big questions of life. And so at the end of this article, here's what Elise says. She says, that is why I no longer consider myself a Muslim apostate, but a lapsed atheist. I love that. Lapsed atheist. I didn't believe, but oh, wait a second. A lapsed atheist. Of course, I still have a great deal to learn about Christianity. I discover a little bit more at church every Sunday. But I've recognized in my own long journey through a wilderness of fear and self-doubt that there is a better way to manage the challenges of existence. Isn't there? Than either Islam or unbelief had to offer. Big questions of like the challenges of existence. Here's my point. Philip's invitation of come and see leads to an encounter, a transformative encounter with somebody. It's happening back then, and my friends, it's happening even today. It's happening now as people are looking at our world and seeing the bankruptcy of secularism in our world. They're saying, there's got to be more than just the fact that you have no free will. There's got to be more, that there is no God and everything's up to you. There's got to be more than when you die, that's all that there is. There's got to be more than this. Come and see. Come and see. This is the invitation that Philip gives to his skeptical friend Nathanael. Here's the response. When Jesus saw Nathanael approaching, he said to him, here truly is an Israelite in whom there is no deceit. Sneering, eye-rolling, how can anything good come from Nazareth? What is Jesus' response to the skeptic? What is your response sometimes to your kid, your neighbor, your friend who's just sneering at Christianity? Oftentimes, Christians get defensive. Oh yeah, well what about, right? Or we give really bad answers. Terrible answers. Well, where's God in my suffering? Well, all things work for good. Meanwhile, they're like weeping. Well, all things will work for good. You just got to hold out. That's a terrible answer. A biblical answer at the right time, but not then. We give terrible answers. We get defensive. Here, look at Jesus. He's not afraid. Not afraid of the eye roll, the contempt, the skepticism. Not afraid. What does he do? He does two things. One, oh, he's gentle. See this response? Here truly is an Israelite in whom there is no deceit. He's gentle in his response. Okay? How much further would you and I and maybe the church be ahead if the answer we gave was one of gentleness? Okay. Secondly, how does Jesus respond? He responds by encouraging him. Do you see this? Encouragement. He encourages the skeptic. He says, here truly is an Israelite in whom there is no deceit. Jesus looks at Nathanael and tells him exactly who he is. He honors his curiosity. He affirms, here is an Israelite in whom there is no deceit. He says, you're the real deal, Nathanael. Because I know how you have scoured the Old Testament looking for your answer to the big question. I know of that. And you have done it authentically. You are the real deal. Man, what a brilliant response to the sneering skepticism of Nathanael. Gentleness and encouragement. Then Nathanael says, how do you know me? Nathanael asked, Jesus answered, I saw you while you were still under the fig tree before Philip called you. See, here is where the encounter happens. Because Nathanael in his brain is just like, this is the guy from Nazareth. What good is he going to give me? The first interaction that he has with Jesus is Jesus encouraging him and he's gentle. That's a little bit off-putting. It's not what he would expect. Okay? But then it goes way deeper. Because Nathanael goes, oh, how do you know that I'm an ideal Israelite? And Jesus is like, oh, I saw you. I saw you. I know you. Because he's not just interacting with now a question or an answer to a question, he's interacting with God. Because here's what's going on in the text, is that Nathanael's saying, there's no way that you could have seen me. How is it possible that you saw me? See, Jesus knows Nathanael, not in a way that you know somebody else, but in a way that God knows you. Why? Because here, Jesus is God. He's like, I saw you. I know you. In fact, Nathanael, I know you better than you know yourself. Is that haunting for you? Think about that. That God knows you better than you know yourself. He knows. He knows. He saw you at that place, at that time, in that moment. He knows the thoughts you worry about. He knows the fear waiting for the diagnosis. He knows the addiction in your life that nobody knows about. He knows the pride that encapsulates your heart that keeps you from saying, I'm sorry. He knows the eating disorder you're trying to hide. He knows the secrets you're keeping from your spouse. That idea makes me feel very exposed. He knows the dysfunction of your life. He knows your skepticism. He knows. That's the point. He knows. He knows. He knows. It is the worst lie you tell yourself. Listen to me. It is the worst lie that you tell yourself that nobody knows. Someone does. His name is Jesus. Okay. So for me this week, I was like, oh man, what do I need to tell somebody? Right? But guys, how does he approach him? Gentleness. Encouragement. Oh, you have these two things at play, don't you see? He knows you better than you know yourself. You're not faking him out. You're not lying to him. Oh, but he approaches you with gentleness. Come. Let's have an encounter. Come. There's a safety and a terror at the same time. And this is the encounter that he is having. And this does something. The conclusion, verse 49. This does something to Nathanael. Then Nathanael declared, Rabbi, you're the Son of God. You're the King of Israel. Because why? In this moment, he's not just interacting with some dude from Nazareth. He didn't encounter some thinker, some rabbi, some sage. In the earth, yeah, rabbi, but he is way more than that. Why? Because all of a sudden, when Nathanael thought he was hidden, he actually wasn't. He wasn't. And the conclusion that Philip has to Jesus moves from the cerebral, how is it possible that anything good could come from Nazareth, to, oh man, you are the Son of God. There's no way that anybody else can know that about me, and you did. From the cerebral to the experience. See, Philip says, come and see, right? Come and see. What leads to Jesus is, I saw you there, right? Philip being courageous enough to say, hey, come and see, leads to Nathanael saying, oh man, you are. Or Jesus is, I saw you there. So, for Nathanael, he goes from, can anything good, right? Remember this? Can anything good? This sneering of Jesus towards Jesus. Can anything good? I am the suitable person. The idea that anything good can come from Nazareth outside my plausibility structures, it goes from that to, wow, you're the Son of God. You are exactly who you say you are. See, Nathanael realizes that Jesus has omniscience. There's something different about Jesus. So the people, you probably feel this in your life, like especially with family and relationship. The people in your life who don't follow Jesus for whatever reason, it's really hard. It's really hard to engage on topics of faith and Jesus. Really, really, really difficult. Because you put yourself out there and there's so many layers, right? So many layers there, and I don't want to say this because it's going to happen there. But if I had just a blank canvas, the question that I want to ask, and I do ask in less complicated relational situations, is tell me about the Jesus that you're rejecting. Did you see the question? Tell me about the Jesus that you are rejecting. And oftentimes, the answer to that question is like, well, judgmental, all of the answers. Oftentimes, my friends, they're not rejecting this Jesus. They have adopted and adhered to a caricature of Jesus. One of the things that we see working with Indigenous people, what I see working with Indigenous people and Norm is so many of my Indigenous Christian friends say things like, I just want to introduce them to the real Jesus, to the real one. And what is a real one like? Oh, he knows, but he's gentle. He's encouraging. He will deal with this stuff. Don't get me wrong. But the first interaction is one of invitation. Come. We'll deal, that stuff can wait. Gentle and encouraging. What Jesus are you rejecting? So you may be here and you might be on the arm of a friend and you're like, yeah, I reject Jesus for lots of these different reasons. I hope this helps challenge that a little bit. Finally. So you think at this point, it's like over. What a great encounter. Nathanael, you are the Son of God. Here, Jesus is always surprising us, because here's what Jesus says. Here's the correction. You'd think, you'd be like, Nathanael, way to go. You've come a long way, man. Good job. Here's what Jesus says to them. Jesus said, you believe because I told you I saw you under the fig tree. He like admonishes him. You will see greater things than that. But Jesus says, if you think that was cool, you wait. The well is as endlessly deep as you could imagine. Because this got you. The fact that I knew that you're under the tree, that got you in. But he's like, you have no idea what's coming. Because why? He uses here an image from Jacob's ladder. I don't have time to explain it to you, but he says, very truly I tell you, you will see heaven open and the angels of God ascending and descending on the Son of Man. Here's what he's saying to Nathanael. As he's saying, for centuries, the idea is that how do I make my way to God? How do I be good enough? How do I say the right things? How do I ascend this ladder to God? Okay? But Jesus is saying to Nathanael, oh, no, that's not how it works. Actually, I have come down to you. I have come down to you. I have come down to you. See, every other religion or human philosophy or your answer to the big question that you are asking right now will depend on your strength, by you living in a certain way, dressing in a certain way, getting a certain degree, losing a certain amount of weight. You will have to do something in order to live up to your standard. What Christianity says is you can't, and you won't, and you haven't, but that's just it. Because here, what Jesus is saying is, I have come down so that you can come up. I have come down so that you can come up. It has been done for you. See, Nathanael, his jaw is dropped because Jesus knows of who he is. But he's like, bro, you just wait till I rise from the dead. That's what he's saying. In other words, it gets better. It gets better. There's no end. So what? For those following Jesus in this room, I think I would just leave with you the invitation from Philip. Come and see. Come and see. Like, when we play the Alpha video, it's like, who are you inviting to Alpha? There's kind of this like latent guilt and terror in people. You're like, I hope my neighbor's going to do that because, right? And we have all these different reasons about why we're not going to do that. I don't know enough of the Bible, whatever. All Philip does is say, come and see. Come check this out. Come check this out. He sees Nathanael's curiosity. He says, come, why don't you join me? I'm hesitant to do this for many different reasons. There's sometimes where I'm very honest with you about the ways that I screw up and mess up, and it's just a gong show. My life is a gong show, but there's sometimes where I want to say that I get it right. And so the families that did Alpha, where the youth came to Christ, was my family and the Reed family and the Wires family in our church. And so I became a youth pastor again every Sunday night, and we did Alpha for a long time in the fall. And honestly, I didn't want to do it. I was like, my Sunday nights, I like football and I like a quiet house. But we did Alpha. And we invited, there was like 13, 14 students in our home every Sunday night. And we saw fruit from that moment. And we just said, come and see. Come and see. Come and see. And let me tell you, it was risky. Risky for us to invite our neighbors' kids. Like, we put ourselves out there. It was risky. I didn't want to do it. And we did it. And Chris and I reflected. We're like, we would do it again. Here's what I want you to know. What I challenge you for you following Jesus. Can we make risk normative in our church? It's normative. Where are you risking? Come and see. Secondly, for those who aren't following Jesus, the band's behind me. They're like, finish up, bro. For those seeking here in this room, Nathanael viewed Jesus outside of his plausibility structure, so something that was reasonable for him to believe, because he was from Nazareth. And you probably have your reason of why you disbelieve. Come and see. Keep going. No questions too big, too scary. Jesus isn't afraid. Neither are we. Continue to lean in. Because what you will discover, if with humility and an open mind, that's what you've been looking for. That's what you're looking for. So come. Jesus, meet us. For those following Jesus here, and for those